What's up, guys?
Brandon, let's get it out of the way now. Does your bachelor's degree from the school up north make this one any more or less special?
Um, for me, it's another game. Um, so, um, being at Illinois now, it's not obviously not a huge rivalry, but it's a huge game for Illinois this week. So we got to treat it that way.
When you see, last one for me is when you see Indiana put 35 on them and have the kind of second half that they did, does that just, I know it's a different scheme than what you guys run and everything, but does that make you feel like, okay, these guys are human. These guys bleed red blood just like us. We can score points.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, they're football players as well. They got to make plays. They got to execute. So I mean, yeah, Ohio State's a great team, great defense, great program. They have been for a while, but that doesn't mean that if we execute on offense and on defense, we can do well for ourselves.
Thanks, Brandon.
Brandon, maybe the best game of your career against Nebraska in terms of the complete performance. Did you feel that way? And what was different for you between that and week one?
Yeah, as far as completion percentage goes, and execution, that was definitely by far my best game that I've played. Um, I think a big thing, which I'll reiterate what I said after the game, is our running game was hitting on all cylinders. When that happens, it opens up the offense and it makes my job easier. When we have manageable third downs, third and threes, fours, five, six, seven, those are manageable downs that we can keep the chains moving. So I think that played a huge role into it as well. And having those big explosive plays, Chase and Epstein's run, getting us in the red zone with Bebe's catches. Those are big plays that you need to make.
What's your thought process as you go through a game plan with Rod this week with Ohio State, knowing that at least from what we can see, there's not a lot of weakness there to exploit?
Yeah, they're very, from what I've seen so far, very disciplined defense. They're in the right place at the right time. You know, for us this week, you just have to have a great week of preparation, and then come game time, we got to execute. And a big thing for the program right now, is coming into this game, we're on a 2-game win streak, and using that momentum and using it towards this game is going to be huge for us.
Brandon?
Hey, Brandon. I'm not sure if you know this, but you weren't the only player that was able to talk a little to some of the Nebraska players. Donnie Navarro also had a little bit to say. Did you see Donnie kind of react, or were you able to watch that happen after the game?
Yeah, we were all making fun of him after the game for that picture. His headband was half off. His hair was looking all crazy. Um, it was funny after that play. I think we scored. We kicked a field goal on that drive. He came up to me. He's like, my lips swollen?" I was looking at him. I was like, "Oh, bro, there's nothing wrong with you. What are you talking about?" So, it's just kind of funny to get that reaction out of Donnie.
Yeah, is he that usual tough guy? That's what he looked like out on the field. Is he that confident in practice? Is that the Donnie you guys see? Because I don't think that anybody else watching that game expected that from him.
Yeah, I think Donnie coming from being a walk-on to earning the scholarship. He's an extremely hardworking guy. When he makes plays like that, I think he gets a little fired up. He has a little chip on his shoulder. So Donnie's. He's a competitor. So, it's good to see that out of a guy like that.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Brandon.
Yep.
Hey, Brandon. As a quarterback, what's it like to have a wide receiver like Donnie who seems to always find a way to be open 10, 15 yards down the field?
Yeah, Donnie's he's a good football player. He knows how to find his zones. But like I said, he works extremely hard at it. He watches more film than any receiver I've been around. He wants to be great, and I mean, it's nice to have a guy like that that you can rely on and that is consistent as well.
And then a quick follow up. Rod kind of mentioned that Donnie comes to practice every day with something to prove. I know that you're kind of someone that does that as well. How much does that help the two of you and your relationship on and off the field every single day?
Yeah. So Donnie and I, we're constantly communicating about, certain looks, what he wants to do on a play. He'll text me like a video recording of his iPad of like a film tape, like, oh, this is what I'm going to do on this, or what do you want me to do on this look? Um, Having that communication and that bond, it gives you confidence in that guy, to find him on the field and, you know, make plays.
Is there ever just like an instinctual moment in a game, or maybe even against Nebraska, where you'll think back in the middle of a play, like, oh, Donnie said he was going to do this in this situation, and you just happen to look and he's open and you're able to hit him a little bit downfield?
Yeah. Actually, on the play right before half, um, which I thought we had another timeout, but we didn't. So that's bad, recognition on my part. But they gave us a cover three look, and actually Donnie and I were talking about, um, what he was going to do on that route. They gave us that particular coverage, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do, and he found the zone, made a great catch. And unfortunately, we weren't able to capitalize on that drive, but you know, he's a heck of a football player.
Thanks, Brendan.
Hey, Brandon. The last time we'd seen you before Nebraska was, of course, Wisconsin. What was the key to being able to go into that game with no rust? How'd you prepare yourself for that?
Yeah, so fortunately, I was able to get like all my heart scan results back pretty early in the week last week. Um, but unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to play because of the 21-day stuff. Um, so I kind of just used those extra days to my advantage. I started practicing on Wednesday of last week. Um, I wasn't getting many team reps because Isaiah and those guys needed those reps to get ready for the game. But I was taking all I could do in individual. Working on my footwork, my accuracy, all that stuff, um, and then also traveling to the game. Kind of got me back in the rhythm, back on that travel schedule. Then I used the game as a kind of like a warm up practice. Um, and then during the week leading up to Nebraska, I worked even harder in preparation, extra film, sat in with what the coaches were thinking, extra meeting time. So, I think that's a big part of it, and continue to do to in order to have success.
Obviously, Isaiah had such a really good performance, and you were on the sideline to be there and help him. But yeah, were you really confident that you'd be the guy when you got back? And what did it mean to you that the staff stuck with you and you showed the way you did?
Yeah, Coach Rod, the Thursday leading up to the game, he was like, you both earned a right to play. With Isaiah coming off that great game versus Rutgers. Um, so, Coach Rod told me, he's like, told both of us actually, he's like, I'm not going to take anybody out of the rhythm. Brandon, you'll start. Um, but, we'll go in a different direction if we need to. Um, so for me, my mentality was just go out and execute, put points on the board, and hopefully just ride the wave.
Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey, Brandon, you mentioned the running game was such a key for you guys, but when you're able to run the ball like that, is there a different swagger, a different mindset to the team when the line's mauling those guys and the backs are picking up chunks like that?
Yeah, we played really physical on Saturday. Our running backs ran really hard. Our O-line did an amazing job. Um, but when you can run the ball like that and out execute, out physical a team, it gives you a lot of confidence. And I think as the game continued to go on, our O line just continued to build up confidence. They just kept. If you go back and look at the film, our O line's driving them 2-3 yards off the ball and just creating massive gaps for our ball carriers. So, big props to those guys.
This might be a silly question, but for you, when you see a 3rd and 2 versus a 3rd and 7 or something, for example, what's different? Is there anything different mentally in terms of, are things more open? Is there a little more, laid back, knowing you've only got to get 2 here versus, a handful?
Yeah, I mean, 3rd and 7, you would love to have 3rd and 3 every time if you had the option, but on the short distance plays, if we have a run play called, we normally have options on the outside, so you got to be smart when taking those. If you have a good look for, to run the ball, even if you do have a good matchup outside, you would think probably, running the ball would be better because you only have 2 yards. But, when you get in 3rd and 7 situations, you don't want to force anything and make an error play that could turn into a big play for the defense. So even if it is 3rd and 7, if you have to dump it off underneath, you never know. Some guy can break a tackle, um, gain yardage to get the first down. So when it comes to those 3rd and long situations, as a quarterback mentality, you don't want to force it unless you really have to with the game on the line.
Thanks, Brandon.
Brendan, trying to call back to the post-game presser against after Wisconsin. It seemed like, at that time you were maybe a little surprised at the way Isaiah was mixed into the offense with you. Were you guys a little more comfortable with the way that went in the game against Rutgers, the way you guys were both utilized?
Versus Nebraska,
Yeah, sorry, versus Nebraska. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so we had a little package with Isaiah, coming into the game with me at quarterback. But, Isaiah was fully, prepared to, take over the role if, they went in a different direction. But Isaiah is a huge weapon on offense. He's a fast, shifty guy that can make big plays at an instant. So, continue to utilize him. It's going to be something, that we can continue to use in our offense.
And then as far as being kind of an underdog, you guys were underdog 6 points against Rutgers, won that game, 16 points against Nebraska, won that game. I know Ohio State's kind of a different animal, but do you guys even pay attention to stuff like that, or do you feed off the underdog role at all?
I don't think there's been a game since I've been here where we haven't been underdogs to a Big Ten team. So, it's nothing new for us. That's just the way it goes when people think about Illinois football. So, yeah, it kind of puts a chip on your shoulder if you're a player for Illinois football that people think you're not good enough to rally and beat teams in the Big Ten. But like I said earlier, going into this week, we're coming off a 2-game win streak. We have a lot of momentum, a lot of confidence, a lot of moxie in the building right now. So we got to keep feeding off of that. Come game time, we got to be prepared and execute. I think if we have that going into the game, it'll work out well for us.
Thanks, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon, I know it's still early in the week. I don't know how much you've scrutinized like position by position for Ohio State yet. What have you watched on their defense, and particularly about the linebackers? Anything that has jumped out to you so far?
Yeah. They're really good up front. Their front seven, I think, is their strong suit. They have really athletic defensive ends, big strong guys up front. The 2 linebackers, one of them actually played against in high school. He's from Indianapolis area as well. Those 2 guys are, tough, talented football players. They're good in the run game. They can cover as well. So, again, going to this game, our O-line's going to have a great week of preparation for these guys, a great week of execution. And, again, we're going to have to be physical up front.
Is there versatility? How does that make things more difficult for you as a quarterback? You can't really necessarily pigeonhole some of those guys into like traditional linebacker roles, I suppose.
Yeah. yeah, I mean, they mix in a little bit of nickel as well, but I think they're comfortable with staying in base and having some of those linebackers in cover situations. You know, one of them is more of a hybrid guy. He's a long, physical player that can cover and play in the run game. So I mean, again, like I said, we're going to have to do a lot of what we did last week: run the ball well and throw the ball well and execute on third down.
Hey, Brandon, I had to step out for a minute, so apologies if this was already asked. But seeing Isaiah have the breakout performance that he did a week ago, did that kind of light a new fire underneath you heading into your return to the field? And what can that kind of do for that quarterback room, knowing that you two can kind of push each other now to really get the best out of your games?
Yeah, I mean, Isaiah's, he's a gifted athlete, a great player, and he makes, he's a tough guy, makes, great plays on the field. And coming into this game, I knew that I had to, execute and do well on offense, move the football and score points, because Isaiah, he's right there, he's good enough to go in there and play. But I think from a coaching standpoint, it gives them a lot of confidence in the QB room to know that there's multiple guys on the roster that can go in and play at any point, and you never know what can happen. And me and Isaiah have a good relationship. We support each other. So I mean, he's competitive, I'm competitive. So I mean, having that that iron sharpens iron. It's only going to make the room better.
And looking at your individual performance Saturday, where do you feel that ranks in terms of best games that you've had since you've been here at Illinois?
Yeah, it's definitely up there. Top three for sure, top two, as far as execution and completing the football and moving the football downfield. Definitely by far my best game, completion percentage wise. But again, like I said, when you can run the football like that, pick up key third downs, it's huge for the offense.
Thanks, Brandon.
Is that it?
We got to wrap up, Brandon, here and move on. We're on a tight schedule with a lot more guys. So moving on to Donnie.